Yo, what's good? We're back with another one.
It's showtime.
Scientists just made one of the biggest discoveries ever, and people are losing their minds. So you've probably heard of hydrogel before, which, if you used to play with Orbeez or anything like that, that's what it's made of. And there's many other things that it is used for. Now we all know the pain of getting a cut, or especially a bad injury or wound. What they do is they plaster it up, they bandage it up, and it's going to take quite a long time to heal, right? Depending on how bad the cut actually is, it can take anywhere from a month, 2 months, even up to a year if it's really, really bad. But scientists at the University of Bayreuth in Germany have just made one of the craziest discoveries ever. And I'm not joking when I say this is literally groundbreaking. What they've done is develop a hydrogel so advanced that it is paper thin, and somehow it mimics human skin. Yeah, in a number of ways such as flexibility and also taking on its healing capabilities. So this tiny thin sleeve that will be put on instead of like a bandage will now be able to heal wounds 90% in 4 hours and fully within a whole day, which is absolutely game-changing for the world, and once this becomes mainstream when they've done more testing, it's insane.
That's incredible.
Yeah, bro. It's gonna be a game changer for people in remote places.
Hasta la vista. Now look at me. Look at that.
New work in progress. What up, Billy? Alright, press the button.
Huh?
What up, Billy?
Oh, what's up, bro? You startled me. How you doing? Ready to pump?
No. I just need some advice. How do you deal with difficult personalities?
Listen to me now. Stay calm and assertive. Set clear boundaries. And remember, you can't change them, but you can control your reaction. Be strong, like a Terminator of negativity. Hasta la vista, difficult personalities.
Appreciate the advice, Billy. Thank you.
Ah, yeah. You're welcome. Now go out there and crush it. Remember, strength and patience. I'll be back if you need more advice. Hasta la vista, baby.
I never thought I'd see a big mouth Billy Bass giving advice.
It was good advice, bro.
Why do so many men send dick pics on Facebook? 11. I'm like, what are you talking about? Who are your Facebook friends? She had 2,500 Facebook friends. And what the children do is whoever's got the most friends is the most popular, so they just accept everybody. And what the predators do is they all follow each other. And when one predator finds a child, all the predators bomb on. So I said to this kid, give me your password. I spent a couple of weeks bringing her Facebook friends list down. But what I was able to do with a pen and paper is map out the predators that were following each other. It took me a few days. And then map out one level down, only one level down of their friends, of who are the kids that they're following. So these are victims and potential victims. And in a few days, I could draw a map. And in these predators, they were from Australia, US, India, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan. Predators were from all over the world. And then it suddenly dawned on me. Social media have within their power the ability to create an algorithm that could in 1 squintillionth of a second map out the full network of predators and map out the network of victims and potential victims and prevent the abuse from happening. And they deliberately choose not to. All these discussions about restricting children from social media, yada, yada, yada. No, there's one answer and there's one answer only.
Cut their balls off.
We can't say that, Ted. Remember, this is for entertainment purposes only.
What happened to this man is arguably one of the worst things that could ever happen to you. This is known as the 1,000-yard stare, and yes, all these photos are 100% real. These photos mainly occurring during World War I and II, but there is more recent examples, of course. Known as the 1,000-yard stare because of what their eyes are saying, you may also know this in forms of shell shock. Now, what actually causes this is seeing something very sudden and extremely traumatic, such as in the war, where you may see people dying right in front of you, or traumatic events that you wouldn't even be able to repeat. essentially being in an emotional shock that puts your body into this state where you can barely function. You've probably heard stories back in the wars of shell-shock victims and how they were treated so badly as well, because we didn't really know that much about mental health and what to actually do with these people. We'd never really seen anything like it before. Nowadays, there's a lot more treatment for this, so people can get the help they need. It's still absolutely horrendous and can leave people in ways like this, causing many physical effects such as headache, confusion, dizziness, falling all over the place, stuttering of words, insomnia, extreme anxiety, and sometimes even paralysis. So if you ever see a video of someone like this, just imagine what they're going through.
There you go. There's a treatment. You'll be alright.
Shut up, bro.
Yeah, look at all those little dots.
Yeah, what do you see?
These are all the satellites, I'm assuming.
Those are just Starlink satellites.
Those are just Starlink.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
And astronomers are getting kind of worried about this. So SpaceX has put well over 7,000 Starlink satellites into space since 2019. Their goal is to have more than 40,000, and they're not the only ones who want to do this. So this is one of those like proper hockey stick charts. It shows the annual number of objects launched into space.
Yeah, wow.
And this is just the beginning. So China has 2 projects planned that would add at least 20,000 more satellites. Amazon wants their own network, the EU, AT&T. If they all get their way, there would be hundreds of thousands of satellites in low Earth orbit. I mean, the thing that's a little misleading with these graphics is like the dots are not to scale.
Of course.
But we are talking about like a massive amount of stuff orbiting the Earth. And these projects are going to get the whole world online. But they bring some challenges. SpaceX has been pretty good about working with astronomers to try to reduce the reflectivity of their satellites. But a group of radio astronomers published a letter saying that the second generation Starlink satellites are leaking 30 times more radio waves than the first generation. The thing that I think is kind of ironic is that these networks are called satellite constellations, which like, if astronomy becomes harder and harder, I feel like that's just an unnecessary jab at the people trying to look at the real stars.
It's like we're doing everything we can to fuck the planet up.
They're getting it ready for the AI takeover.
Have you heard of a book called The Kabbalion?
No.
Well, this should be right up your street. The Hermetics were Egyptians. It's where the Freemasons came from, and the alchemists and the people in the Middle Ages who preserved, the culture when the Dark Ages came. And the Hermetics comes from Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes thrice great, who was supposedly the wisest man or avatar or god from the Egyptian period. And the Kabbalion was their book. I don't know if the actual Kabbalion still exists. There are I have like one little short book of it, but they had a whole deep philosophy that is a lot like this. You want me to talk about this for a second?
Sure. Yeah, please.
I mean, there were I think the Hermetics had like 7 principles. Let's see if I can remember what they are. The first one is that you and I have no physical existence as entities. We exist entirely as thoughts in the mind of the All, or God. Sort of like the analogy they use is like in the mind of Dickens is Mr. Micawber and Pip and David Copperfield and all that. And that you and I only exist as thoughts in the mind of God. And they believed that the universe was entirely mental. That's what this was. That there really is no physical existence. And that it was all vibrational. And that one of the things they believed was that there's no such thing as opposites. Heat and cold are not opposites. Fear and courage are not opposites. They are just points on a continuum. And that the difference between fear and courage is entirely in the vibration. And so this is where the alchemy came in. They believed that if they could change their vibration or change the vibration of lead, that they could change it into gold. And they had, their other things was, everything vibrates. The other thing was that everything swings on a pendulum. Everything goes back and forth from one thing to another. And they also believe that everything is male and female, that everything is created comes from the union of male and female in the highest levels. Anyway, it's great shit. And, at one point, apparently, in ancient Egypt or before that, this was, this was what they believed, and it somehow got wiped out. or just held on in various little pockets of the occult knowledge and stuff like that. So it's the ancient Hermetics, and the book is the Kybalion, K-Y-B-A-L-I-O-N.
We gotta do a deep dive on alchemy, bro.
We're working on the Easter Island diorama at the moment for our next special. We can't wait to show you guys.
What have you found in your research looking at animals and telepathy?
There are mental fields around certain animals. We see this in pools of fish. How are they turning at the exact same time, right? There is this idea of like, are they all kind of connected to a greater mental field of consciousness that is helping control their movements? Rupert Sheldrake, a biologist from Cambridge, talks a lot about this. He's written books and done incredible research on animals, pets, knowing when their owners are coming home. And they'll put cameras around and page someone at the office. So it's always they're coming home in a different time, in a different car, from a different place. And they have cameras and see that the dog will go stand by the door, and in some cases cats. And if there's a flat tire, or something happens, or this person gets called back into the office, the dog will go back and sit down. And then the second their owner's heading home again, they come back up. So there seems to be this telepathic link there. There was a conservationist who was trying to get some rowdy elephants into an animal preserve. And after a good amount of time, this man's name was Lawrence Anthony. He really worked to get the elephants' trust. He made their safe space. It was a huge amount of land. And he hadn't been, I think, in touch or seen these elephants much in the last few years of his life. And then one day he died. Well, the elephants all kind of gathered and walked to his house from where they were. And they all kind of show up right around the same time. And they stayed for a few days, mourning. And it was remarkable for his widow, because the question is, how did these elephants know to go and do their mourning ritual?
Wow.
How? And the story doesn't end there. Every year on the anniversary of his death, and this went on for a few years, the elephants would leave what they were doing and go to his house and pay their respects.
Only on that day?
On that day. It took them a while to get there. They had to walk a few days to get there. But yes, they knew exactly when he died the first time, and then they would pay their respects thereafter for a few years on the day of his death. And so to me, it's like, if you have a hard time grasping telepathy in humans, look at the animals, because we're pretty closely related. And there's just some beautiful treasures of stories of this telepathic link expressing itself in nature.
Go check out our episode on the telepathy tapes, bro.
Yeah, to all you new guys, we've got a deep dives playlist on our channel. Check it out.
Elon Musk has just had the worst weekend ever. Tesla stock has been plummeting, clocking in their 7th worst day in their 15 years trading history. Donald Trump blamed the radical left lunatics boycotting the firm and promised that he will buy a brand new Tesla to help their stock prices. There was a whole wave of attacks carried out at multiple Tesla dealerships, with one individual arrested carrying explosives at a dealership in Colorado. They tried to set fire to the building and were only arrested on their 5th separate attempt. Teslas have been attacked and vandalized in the streets and at charging stations, and just last night, a number of Cybertrucks were torched in Seattle. And then, at the same time as all of this, another one of Elon's companies, X, suffered multiple outages. Elon later revealed that these outages were caused by a massive cyber attack to try and bring down the X system, with the attack apparently having IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area. And this is all just days after he appeared on Joe Rogan saying that he has to be careful to not push too hard with his work at Doge, otherwise—
And this is really going to get me assassinated. I actually have to be careful that I don't push too hard on the corruption stuff, because it is going to get me killed.
One of the individuals who gathered this weekend to protest against Doge said,
I'm hoping that if he feels enough pain from his companies having trouble, he'll leave.
Tesla car sales in Europe are down 45% in January compared to the same month in 2024, 76% down in Germany, 49% down in China, and they also recorded declining sales in America and Australia. However, despite all of this, if you zoom out, Tesla share prices are still at roughly the same place they were just before the election. But the question is, will the boycotts and attacks truly hurt Elon's companies, or will they be fine?
The cracks are starting to show.
He's probably going to mumble his way out of it.
This is the most important mural that's ever been created in human history.
Aggressive.
Period.
Period. You put a period on the end.
This, it tells us everything.
Okay.
I've broken this down a bunch of times. Your listeners haven't heard that maybe, so I'm gonna break it down again.
Let's do it.
Remember in the tablets it says kingship is lowered, and it literally is created, right? And everything I just said. In this depiction, and I want to break it down, the two beings on the other end are the Anuna. That's why they have wings, and that's why the horns on their helmets have multiple horns that represent status. They are not like we are. They're not kings. They're the beings that we think of as the Anuna, our creators.
So the Anuna, though, I'm just thinking symbolism as we know it in bullshit modern culture.
Yeah.
Wings good, horns bad. They have both.
Horns are not really bad. That was something that was inverted later. Horns represented status. That's why bulls were used all throughout Egypt. The bull represented status as power. So, and certain symbols throughout history would have very, very strong connotations and meanings behind them. The two most important symbols for power, like strength, were two things. It was the horns of a bull itself in Egypt, and a lion. And the lion in Assyria was famous, and you can see depictions of that. They represented strength and power. And so they would depict them in symbols, and the eagle always represented war and empire building. It was like a different mindset. Now, in this depiction, you're seeing our two Anuna on either side passing rulership, kingship, to rule over us, to two different individuals. One of them is a king, and one of them is a priest.
Which one's the king and which one's the priest?
I just need to zoom in real quick. Hold on a second. Okay. This image right here, the individual on the right of the tree is holding what's called the rod of rulership in his hand.
Okay.
And that rod of rulership means he's a king. And then the other individual across from him has symbols that basically represent spirit, like religion, and seeking that aspect of it. It's you learn that one's a priest and one's a king.
Got it.
And what it means is that now notice those two beings with the wings. They're passing this. You see that? What they're passing is the symbol of the pine cone, and in their hand they have the handbag. Remember Pillar 43 in Göbekli Tepe? It's got the same handbag symbol below it. This is what I'm breaking down to mean. The Anuna, they know all. They know everything in the universe. They are more powerful than we can ever understand. They seem to somehow be related to creation.
Do they look, I mean, because I'm looking at this and I'm just basing it off like some other murals I look at. Like to me, comparing it to other murals, they look like humans.
Okay, because you see the king and the priest in the middle?
Yeah.
They emanated them. So the reason they look like that all throughout the Middle East, with the long beard and that's braided, was because that was how they physically decided to represent themselves.
We could do a whole episode on that bag they're carrying.
I'm a tree of life, bro.
If you have any Bluetooth devices, you're going to want to watch this video right now. You are all watching this on a phone or some sort of device that will have Bluetooth, and I'm sure your friends are, so make sure you share this video with them right now. So we know Bluetooth is essentially magic, like I'm not even going to try and explain how it's created. But essentially, recently they have found some commands, almost like malware, on Bluetooth chips on over 1 billion devices. This just essentially means a version of chip that might be in your phone, your iPad, laptop, TV, headphones, anything. This has basically allowed an entry point for hackers, meaning it's a lot easier to get into your devices through the Bluetooth and then do whatever they want with the device. This could of course pose a lot of threats, such as people being able to get into certain restricted areas in your phone, potentially even banking and other things like that, although I doubt it. But of course also allow hackers to interfere and put malwares and viruses on your devices, meaning you can't use them again, so that's not good. Now they were able to get this malware essentially onto these chips due to the companies creating the devices and the chips not actually putting the right procedures in place, so this can't happen. Also, if you do have one of these chips that is infected, if you go and connect to public Wi-Fi, it will literally spread. So if then any other people connect to the Wi-Fi, they'll be able to get into those phones as well, which is scary. It is scary, but things like this do happen quite a lot, so just make sure you share this with your friends. Stay safe, it will be fine, I will keep you updated.
You gotta use a VPN.
Yeah, don't worry, it's not a sponsor plug. Just stay safe on the internet.
What Disney just did blew my mind. Do you guys remember the story I told you guys about the doctor that died at Disney Springs? It's like a
peanut allergy or something, right?
Yeah, peanut or dairy allergy. And they served her something with it. She died at the restaurant. Like it was like a big deal. And apparently this guy, the husband, is trying to sue Disney Springs or Raglan Road or whoever because they felt like they were negligent, which is totally fair for a widower. This is bad. This could happen again. But apparently Disney is in court or whatever. They're having discussions because they say, listen, you've signed something that says you're not allowed to sue us. He's like, whoa. When did I ever sign anything? They said, well, in 2019, you signed up for a month of Disney Plus.
Shut up!
And in that contract says we are not liable for any type of things. You cannot bring any type of legal. No. You can't sue us through anything.
This
So
go to the Supreme Court.
it's gonna be nuts. It's gonna be crazy.
But when you do the accept the terms and conditions,
Yeah.
you're saying you can never sue Disney for anything, even on their own property. If your wife dies,
yes,
yo, Disney, get out of here. It's
It's
crazy.
out of control.
It was fucking outrageous.
It's Disney, bro. They do it a lot worse.
Who's the best at remote? Is there one person that's consistently accurate?
Joe McMoneagle is probably the best one alive today. He described a structure, and he described a ship that was being built by the Russians, which was a super submarine in a hangar somewhere. And the Navy just laughed at him. They said, "That's crazy, it's in a hangar, away from the sea. So why would you build a ship, when you don't have the ocean?" Well, it turned out he was right, and it was a super class, new Soviet submarine. He described the inside of the building, which had no windows and so on, and from a satellite, they could see the building, but they couldn't see inside the building. He described what was inside the building. He described the submarine. He described the length, and he actually measured it psychically. And that turned out to be right. And then when the submarine was built, they brought some bulldozers and they dug, a channel to the sea, and off it went.
That's crazy. Rogan's had some good guests lately.
Yeah, bro. He had Bill Murray.
What the fuck? So the Jeffrey Epstein files are getting a little bit weird. So the US Attorney General Pam Bondi was literally telling everyone that she's been given the green light from the FBI to basically get her hands on all of the Jeffrey Epstein files and release them. In fact, she said it is gonna blow your mind. So the FBI, as promised, went ahead and sent her all the documents. 200 pages, and even she agreed that this was a little bit strange. So she went back to the FBI and basically said, "Can I have the rest?" And they said, "Oh no, that's literally all we have on Jeffrey Epstein." When she started to go through them files, what she realised was everything that was either in them was either blank or was stuff that you could find yourself on Google anyway. Like, this woman was getting ready to drop names. She has dropped the 200 files. In fact, she's called it Phase 1. Because when she did drop them, she also dropped something else. And that was a letter to the FBI, to the head of the FBI, basically saying that they're aware that there is thousands of files on Jeffrey Epstein, and she has basically demanded for them to hand them over. I mean, hats off to her, but this shit could start getting very juicy really soon.
When they release the rest of the files, we should make a diorama of Epstein Island, bro, for a special.
I don't know, mate. It's a bit fucked up.
The actual question is your bonuses.
Yes. So my pay last year was £4.5 million.
And that is a salary, or is that a bonus?
No, that's a salary, that's a bonus in a long-term share scheme.
When you say those words, and you've been very honest with us, and we appreciate that, you've said it straightforwardly, and you know that there are people watching this who are struggling to pay their bills, maybe to your company. What goes on in your head?
So look, it's a huge amount of money. I am incredibly fortunate. I don't set my own pay, that's set by a remuneration committee. And that's the first bonus that I'd taken in my time in Centric, and a number of years I'd given a bonuses because of hardships that customers were facing. I thought it was right that we put a lot of our money, a lot of our profits into supporting customers. But you can't justify a salary of that size.
Can you say that again?
You cannot.
So you can't justify.
Well, you can, because it's a huge amount of money to anybody looking at this. It's a huge amount of money.
Okay, if you say you can't justify it, I mean, with the best one in the world, and I'm trying to be straight with you, why take it?
I suppose for the same reason that, if you look, the average wage in the UK is about £30,000. All of us sitting here on this sofa will make substantially more than £30,000. It's not for me to set my own pay. It's not for you to set your own pay. But you've got to recognise that when you've got people that are struggling, like the customer we saw there struggling for payments, or I look at my mum who's in the basic state pension, it's just impossible to justify, so there's no point in trying to do that.
They cut the pensioners' allowance, but this prick's taking 4.5 million.
It's disgusting, bro. It's the start of the Hunger Games.
I don't understand.
that when you go into the Appalachian Mountains, you are entering into another realm. And there is a set of unspoken rules that you must follow. Rule number 1, if you hear something calling your name, right, you didn't. There is nothing there. And you should not respond. Do not say hello. Do not say, who is it? Just run away. Because something is trying to gain permission. And by you acknowledging it, you are allowing it to come after you. If you hear screams in the mountains, right? You didn't. And do not go towards the direction of the screams to try and help. Because once again, something is trying to lure you. If you see people, you don't. If you hear crying, you're not hearing it. Do not respond to this at all because you are giving permission to whatever is in those woods to come after you. Now, if you are to go camping in the Appalachian Mountains, right? You have to remember, at night, you must keep a fire going at all times. And it's not for warmth, it's not for cooking, it's to keep you safe. And if you are going to camp in a tent, make sure when you go into that tent, it is sealed up. There are no holes, there are no cracks. And if you hear any kind of screaming, yelling, or anyone calling your name, do not respond. Do not go to sleep. And if something wakes you up, stay alert, and once again, do not respond. Now, it's very important when you are walking through the Appalachian Mountains, if you come across a deer carcass, do not touch it, do not stare at it, walk away, ignore it, because this is something, once again, trying to lure you into the woods. Now, if it comes to the point that something is chasing you and it gets you and there is no escape, fight as hard as you can, whether it's a person, an animal. If it's something else though, and you know what I'm talking about, well, you just let it get you, right? Because at that point, there's nothing you can do. And there's an old saying, you go into the Appalachian Mountains with 2 bullets, right? You fire the first one at something that isn't a person, that isn't an animal. And if it doesn't run away, you know what to do.
Why would anyone go there, bro?
It's actually really beautiful though.
So are we just going to ignore the fact that ChatGPT just fundamentally disproved everything that we believe to be true about reality? Sam Altman's over here freaking out about it. We're just going to go about our day. A few days ago, Sam asked the newest and smartest version of ChatGPT if it thought that consciousness was the only thing that exists, or if the materialistic universe was also real, and the answer that it gave blew my mind and shocked everyone. Here's where things got crazy. It said that consciousness fundamentally exists, but what you can't prove is that matter, that the universe around us exists, because you observe the universe around you through your consciousness, and that the mind can create very real experiences like dreams. So you can't actually prove that there's a material universe. Sum it up, it said, yes, consciousness is likely the only fundamental existence, and no, it does not think a separate material universe independently exists. Stated as simply and directly as possible, I, ChatGPT 4.5, conclude that consciousness is ultimately all that exists, and matter is just internally generated as an experience of consciousness, not independently real. This level of depth is disturbing. Let me know what you think.
AI's getting out of hand, bro. But we'll have to save that for next time.
A big shout out to all our new members. We're going straight into another episode now. Hope you guys like the new schedule.
That's Wednesday nights and back-to-back episodes on Sundays, bro.
And as always, Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.